thank you to everyone who has already showed up. We will be having Amie Woleslagle join us today, followed by Olivia G. Booms, I should say. I should use author names. And then finally, Abby Lynn Voss will be joining us today. And I'm really excited to talk to them. It's going to be a good time. We all have stories published last month in the Voices of the Future, Stories of Family and Fearlessness anthology from the Author Conservatory. And if you don't have your copy of this yet, or you would like another copy to get for somebody, there's a link to it in the description. So go ahead and grab that if you are interested. I am pulling up the questions that I'm going to be asking our guests today. For those of you who are here now, have you been to the previous anthology interviews that I've done, or is this going to be your first one? See Molly. I know Molly's been here before. Okay, I'm seeing some messages from authors. We are about ready to have some people join. We're working on it really close. We'll see if we can get our technology to work. Let's see if we can get our guests on. Here we go. The camera's. Hi, Amie.
Hi, let's see. There we go. Now we can both see each other.
Go. Now you're not sideways.
Yes.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I am doing pretty well. We just had a bunch of like really warm days for February here, and then all of a sudden it turned cold. So
Well,
been
the
an
cold's
interesting
not
weather.
reached here yet.
Okay, good.
It's like 77 outside, so it's warm.
Yeah, that's what we had the last couple days, and then just overnight went to freezing. So, oh well.
Yeah.
Okay, Amie, my first question that I've been asking everybody on these interviews is, what is the first thing you want people to know about you as an author?
That's a really good question. Um, I think as authors, we tend to get a little in our heads as we do all this kind of things, and we're constantly like, "Oh, what about our brand? What about our image?" All those type of things. And honestly, I think like the first thing I want people to know about me as an author is I'm just human. I'm just
Mhm.
a girl who loves stories and who's out here playing imaginary things and writing it down. It's not that serious. That makes sense.
Yeah, we definitely tend to get all in our heads about it, and we have to be the big important writer people. And yeah, it's always good to remember. Like that's how we started. Is just we love stories, we enjoyed it, and that's still what we're doing.
Yeah,
We're just
same
still enjoying
friends.
stories. Yeah.
We're just gotten really
So
good at it.
what?
We can do it professionally.
Yes, right. So what is your story in the Voices of the Future anthology about?
So, my story, The Colors of Grief, is all about a girl who's trying to find out who she is after she's lost her sister. Um, and it's mostly about finding hope and identity in things other than the people you love. Because a lot of
Mm,
times, especially growing up, we have our family and that's where our identity is. And that's good. We should have family as our identity in some ways, in shapes and forms. But in other ways, we have to find identity elsewhere because our family isn't always going to be there, unfortunately. So,
yeah. Yeah, you can get too wrapped up in only identifying yourself with your family members.
yeah. And you have no identity outside of that, which is dangerous because we are
Yeah.
individuals as well as family members.
Yeah. What was the main inspiration for your story?
So unfortunately I had a sister who passed away. And so my story is kind of fictionalizing my own process in grieving, and my own experiences I had through that, and my own realization that, yeah, I had to find an identity and a future outside of what I had seen and planned with my sister.
Yeah, for sure. There's been a theme through all of these interviews of a lot of us drawing on very personal, real life experiences for our stories and trying not to just make them like only based on other stories that we had read or movies that we'd seen or whatever. And I think that made these stories a lot stronger that we're drawing on things that we've actually experienced and seen ourselves in real life.
No, definitely. Yeah, this is probably one of the first, like, almost biographical stories I've ever written. And so that made it really, really hard to write because of that. And it was pulling from such a place of hurt. But at the same time, it was very healing. So I definitely encourage it for anyone who wants to write about their own pain.
Yeah.
Girl.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Who is your story written for?
It's for anybody who's lost somebody. It's mostly just there to say, hey, you're not alone. You're seen, and pain and grief hurts and it sucks, but we're together in it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we talked about this one a little bit already, but how does your story fit into the family theme?
Ooh. Um, so when I was first told it was going to be the family anthology, I was like, mm, because the story itself is actually kind of more about found family slash losing family. Um, and so I was like, this is kind of sad and morbid to go into a family like, oh, buddy buddy kind of anthology. But I think it really is there to show the different aspects of family, because family does always end in some way, shape, or form in grief. Like, you do end up losing, unfortunately, your grandparents and other things in your life. And so learning how to deal with the loss of family is just as important as learning how to deal with relationships and family. Because in a way it is a relationship. So yeah, I guess that's how.
Yeah, yeah, I hadn't quite thought of it like that before, but yeah, most of the stories in the book are about interacting with family members, whereas your story is more about when you can't interact with a family member
Yeah.
because of having lost them. So that definitely brings a unique angle to the anthology that wouldn't have been there otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if we live long enough, hopefully all of us live long enough, to see life in its fullest. But in seeing life in its fullest, we also see death and its nastiness. And so that's kind of where my story is showing how life continues even after death touches it.
Right. What are some books or movies or songs or other things that you would compare your story to and be like, fans of this will like my story?
I read that question before I got on here and I went, uh oh, I don't know. And I've been sitting here trying to like rack my brain. Um, to kind of figure it out. So I'm gonna steal actually some of the reviews. They all were like, "It's very YA." So I promise you, if you love YA, you'll like my story. Um, just yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't have an answer for that one. I'm so sorry. I tried to rack my brain in the 15 minutes before I hopped on here.
Yeah, that's okay. Not everybody has easy comparisons to draw. I think very YA is fair, and yeah, I think fans of especially contemporary YA. I think if I knew more contemporary YA, then I'd probably have more ideas. Oh,
Yeah,
Caleb, who is watching, says Bridge to Terabithia. That
I can definitely see that. Bridge to
I can see
Terabithia.
that.
Yeah, I listened to that on audiobook when we were in Yellowstone with my aunt, and I cried, like, for an hour, and I was like, "How dare you put this story on when you knew she was going to die?" And my aunt was like, you just gotta get used to it." I was like, "Oh."
Yep. Yeah, it's the worst. I haven't actually read the book or watched the movie yet, but I know the big spoiler, which is terrible. I need to just read the book so that I've actually read it. Um, but
Jenny.
but yes, I can see the comparison there. Except like a non-fantasy and more teenage version. of
Yeah, because
yeah.
my main character is definitely more. I think she's a young adult. Can't give you an exact age,
Yeah,
but she's not quite as young as the characters in Bridge to Terabithia.
right. So this is the big hard question at the end that I am never sure how people answer, but I keep asking it because people keep giving really good answers. So, how do you hope your writing will impact the future of storytelling?
Oh, um, hmm. So I'm gonna be honest. I don't write to impact the type of story to impact the future of storytelling. I write to impact the future of people. I write to
Mhm.
impact the present of people. I write to help people see their past clearer. And so when it comes to actual storytelling, I think storytelling is going to change and evolve as it has in the past 500 years since we've been able to record and more that we've been able to. Why did I say 500? That is such a small number. I'm sitting here thinking math. I'm not a math person, people. Um, you know,
The proper record started with
the proper.
Shakespeare. That was that.
Yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking. I was like, if it's before Shakespeare, like the Odyssey doesn't exist. That's not even a book. Mm-mm. If it's not European, it doesn't exist. Okay. Anyway, uh, so I write more for people than I do for the actual art of storytelling. So I don't think I will ever change the future of storytelling in any way, shape, or form, except in the fact that I might inspire a writer to be better than me, which would be awesome. Go, go forth and prosper.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a cool thought that, like, regardless of what we ever do as writers, that we might help somebody else who then goes on to become the next really big writer who then reaches a lot more people than we ever could, and we just don't know how that is all gonna work out.
And then they'll be sitting in an interview and they'll be like, "So who inspired you to start
Yeah.
writing?" You've never heard of this person. She's long dead and buried, but she's awesome.
Yeah, then you become posthumously famous. Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. Once I'm dead, then I can be found famous.
Yeah.
Paparazzi can't take pictures of me.
Mhm, yes. Yes. Well, okay, if you guys who are watching have questions for Amie, go ahead and start typing them in the chat so that we can ask those soon. While you are typing in your questions, Amie, where can people find you? I'll add your links later to the description when I post the recording, but in the meantime, where can people find you and learn more about you and your writing?
So, you can find me on Instagram at writing Amy Ann. Um, I also have a YouTube channel which I have not updated in over 2 years, and a blog which has taken about the same amount of time since they've seen me. Um, yeah, I also have a email list. Yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. And we have a question from Molly who says, when writing fictional stories about real life happenings, do you have any thoughts on how much to keep the same and how much to change?
I love this. So I'm a very private person. I don't like even on Instagram, I don't like social media very much. I would much rather just like disappear um than actually like put myself out there or be on social media very often. So the same thing happens with my stories. I would much rather have my story like just be extremely private and stand on its own. And so for that purpose, I really think everybody has a different amount of privacy that they prefer to keep, and how much they're willing to share. So a lot of keeping those type of decisions have to be made personally. Um, for me personally, the story is very fictional. I did lose a sister. She did not die in a car crash though. Um, but each and I've never done any of the things in this short story. Still tattooless, for all those people who hated that aspect of the story. um, but each of the things that happen in the story and each of the elements, like the color pink, um, apple pies, um, lilies, those type of things are very important to my personal story and some memories that I have with my sister. And so I wanted to carry those elements into the actual short story.
Hmm.
So, the make it so that it's meaningful to you, but also make it so that you are comfortable with sharing and you won't continuously have pain when you're sharing your story, you know? Because we want it to benefit people, but also not hurt you.
Yeah, that's interesting how you brought in some aspects of your like the really personal aspects of the story kind of symbolically, such that it's not something that other people are going to see and suddenly know a ton about you, but then that makes it personal to you. So
Yeah,
that makes
exactly.
sense.
And if I ever become friends with someone who's read the short story, I can happily share some of the memories that those things are symbolic towards. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
And Caleb asks, what is your next writing project?
Oh, so right now I am currently redrafting a murder mystery called the A Whisper of Velvet, which the title could change. But it's all about a girl and her homicide detective brother, and they're trying to figure out who murdered her best friend. And the fun little twist of the story is that the girl can see ghosts. And so she's the one who's helped her brother get to where he is in the detective agency and everything. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I remember seeing a synopsis for this story at some point. So that's really fun that you're still working on it.
It's fun for everybody else except me. I'm very much a one and done type of person. I like that when the story is still new and exciting, and redrafting and editing for sure is gets old.
I feel that. Yeah, I've had similar experiences. Well, is there anything else that you want to say before I push the button to kick you off of the call? Or does anybody have any last minute questions?
I think my last words would be just read the anthology. There's so many different types of stories. You'll be sure to find one that you'll love, and it's okay if it's not The Colors of Grief, but if it is, hey, you and I can have a chat over Instagram, and I'd love you to hit up my DMs and we can talk about it. So, yeah.
There we go. Well, thank you for joining me today, Amy, and thank you for giving me tips about how to do a YouTube live. That's been helpful through this whole
No
process.
problem.
Glad you could finally make it.
Me too. Thank you so much, Jenny. I appreciate this so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I will see you later. And let me see if I can remember how to kick you out. Aha, there's the button. Okay. So as soon as Olivia is ready, she can join me. If you guys have any questions that you already know you want to ask Olivia, you can go ahead and put those in the chat, and I will hopefully remember them until the end. And if not, you can remind me. Um, but in the meantime, don't forget that if you want to read these stories that we're talking about that we have written, they are in the Voices of the Future anthology, and there is a link to the Voices of the Future anthology in the description of this video. So don't forget to grab your copy if you haven't yet. All of the proceeds from these books go to help us writers attend writers conferences, which is really helpful for us in our upcoming future writing careers. Let's see if we can get Olivia on next. Olivia, are you here? If you guys have read the anthology, what are some of your favorite parts of it? I was about to say, what are your favorite stories? But that might be an awkward question to ask since some of the authors are here and some of them are not. So maybe just like any favorite moments or favorite characters or something that you don't feel weird talking about when some authors are watching and some are not. Also, Abby, if you're here and ready to go and want to go ahead and join, then maybe you can hop on before Livy while she gets ready. Either one would work. Yeah, Molly, I love the variety in the anthology too. I was I was afraid that it was going to feel a lot like we were all from the same writing school, and like we are, and that's cool, but I was afraid it was going to feel like weirdly the same. Um, and I really like the variety. We've got somebody joining. Hey, Abby.
Hi. Okay, look at us figuring out technology stuff. I'm so proud of us.
Yes, we're doing it. Yeah, sorry about making you jump on earlier than planned. Olivia says she doesn't think she can join, unfortunately, which
Oh
like
no.
we've just never been able to get everybody to join that we were planning on having join, which is, which is too bad because Olivia is a lot of fun and her story is a lot of fun. We'll have to do a shout out to her story at the end.
Yes.
Um, but how are you doing, Abby?
I'm good. I'm super excited to be here, and I'm glad that I was able to hop on because this is the first time I've done any YouTube things at all, which is why I also couldn't comment in the chat. I was responding in my head to everything, but because I don't have like a YouTube channel, I couldn't respond. So just know that I was reading all your comments and I was, mentally responding.
Yeah, yeah, that's weird that you couldn't comment, but yeah, all the technology things, yeah, glad that you could at least get on. So
We're here.
Olivia is still trying, so hopefully we'll be able to get her on. But yeah, but I'm glad that we can have you on and go ahead and talk with you. So, what is the first thing that you want people to know about you as an author?
Mm. I love that I'm gonna act like I've never heard these questions before, even though I
Yes,
just heard you ask Amie, but
be
oh my
very
gosh, that's so
surprised.
original.
Be
Yes.
very surprised.
Um, this was a tough one for me. I think for me, I loved Amy's answer about being like just a human. And I think for me personally, what's really important is like I just turned 18. I'm graduating high school this year. And so because I write YA because I am part of the YA audience and like I am a YA reader and I am, in the YA young adult life stage. And so what I really love writing about is stories that feel kind of authentically YA, like when you read a book that's YA and you're like, "Oh my gosh, like this is an actual teenager. They sound like an actual teenager. They act like an actual teenager." And it just feels realistic and you feel like, "Oh, this person gets me. Like they know what I'm talking about." And I think that's what I love to read and that's what I love to write too. So,
Yeah, that's great. I think we've all read the YA book with the teenager who's either like insanely competent for a teenager or like insanely incompetent for a teenager or like is just angst all the time. It's like I don't think I was quite like that when I was a teenager. So yeah, I love that that yeah, that you're in the position of like being an actual teenager and not just, trying to come up with what books make it sound like it's like to be a teenager.
yeah, definitely. And I love all of my, cheesy YA love triangles, but also I know that not all YA readers, want books. It's kind of like when you read a love triangle, you're like, okay, is the teenage experience just about like having two boys like fling themselves at me? Because that's not mine. So,
Like, wait, like, wait,
a
I
little
had
bit more
one
realistic.
proposed to 3 times before I turned 18. Did I do something wrong?
Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, what is your story in the Voices of the Future anthology about?
Yes. All right. We're gonna see how I can summarize it because I have not been the best with my elevator pitch for this. But my story, The Little Tire Shop, is about my main character Quinn trying to preserve her grandfather's legacy, which is kind of symbolized by the mechanic shop that he's always owned, the Little Tire Shop. But because of her grandfather's death, the shop is now falling apart, and it's up to her to fix it. But how does she fix it if she doesn't actually have the same skills that her family has to be able to do it? So it's really about, figuring out where you fit as you're growing up, and, learning to accept your own independence and like accept as you're kind of stepping away and learning to kind of be different from your family and also the ways that you guys can still come together and that unity and healing in grief. So yeah.
Yeah. And what was the main inspiration for your story?
Yes. So for my story, actually, um, I've told this in like a couple interviews, but I in the town that I live in, right outside of town, there's a little mechanic shop called the Little Tire Company. And one day we were just like driving past it, and I was like, man, the Little Tire Company, like that's a good name. That needs a story. And so that was the initial idea. And then everything kind of like branched out from that. But it's funny, anytime I would tell that story on an interview, the person interviewing me would be like, "Oh, have you told like the shop about your story?" And I was like, "Nope, I haven't yet." But I can now say that I have officially. I went into the shop, I gave them a copy, and I got to meet the owner. He was the nicest guy. So it was very fun. It was great.
That is so fun. It's so cool that it comes from your hometown, because I know you love your hometown and are inspired by your hometown a lot. Another theme that has shown up a lot in talking to anthology authors is that the places where we've grown up specifically have been inspirations to a lot of us. So that is really neat. And I'm so glad that you finally told them and gave them a copy of the book.
Me too. Me too. Yes, it needed to be done.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
And who is your story for?
Yes. So I would say my story is for anyone that is kind of in that YA like phase of growing up and learning about independence, learning about being independent. And also anyone processing grief. It is a grief story, especially like that first grief, like that first losing a grandparent, or those kinds of emotions, and learning how to navigate that for the first time is really hard. And it's a lot of emotions. And so, yeah, I would say it's really for anybody kind of navigating um, all of those themes for the first time. And also, I hope it can just be a comfort story. It's not super dark. It's not too much. So if you need like a safe little place to just rest for a little bit, it can also be that. You can be welcomed into the Oliver family.
Yes, it's got all the like retro nostalgia kinds of vibes that make
Yeah.
it very cozy. We again talked about this one a little bit already, but how does your story fit into the family theme?
Yes. Well, um, like I mentioned, obviously it centers around this Oliver family and basically losing a member of that family and learning to um, heal together through that grief. Before everybody's kind of wrestling through it on their own, but when we learn to kind of have that unity and heal together and be open about those feelings, it's a lot easier to bear the burden with one another. And so, at the end, you get to see them start to come together, and there's some healing there, which is really special.
Mm-hmm. And a very fun jacket.
Yes.
That is an important part of the family relationships. What are some books or movies or songs that you would compare your story to, or say like if you're a fan of this, you'll like my book? Valerie already mentioned the one in the chat that everybody brings up. But what is that one, and what are some of the other ones?
Yes, Encanto is definitely. I actually don't think I had watched it when I started plotting it. Like I don't remember having a specific connection to that, but I've definitely now afterwards everybody's been like, "Oh my gosh, this is like an Encanto story." I'm like, "Oh, you're right." But then I would also say one of my favorite books is Letters to the Lost, which is like a YA contemporary about grief, and obviously my story is magical realism, but kind of the similar themes of healing through grief and those sorts of things. Or songs is very easy for me. Music is a really big part of my story. Both kind of like the 60s, 70s, like classic songs, like the Beach Boys and the Monkees. Those are very important to the story. And because my main character's grandfather has this cassette tape that he's given her that has all of these classic songs. And then my dad and I also wrote a song for my short story called Cherry Lane. My dad is a musician. And so the story is called Cherry Lane. You can find it on Spotify or any of those other places if you do
It's
want to
so
listen to it.
fancy. You can find
All the places. But it was really fun to do. I'm not naturally a singer, and I haven't really like done a lot of professional lessons, but it was definitely a growing experience to get comfortable singing in front of people, but it was really fun. So yeah, those are a couple couple different places where that remind me of my story.
Yeah. The other one that I thought of when I was reading your story is the Transformers Bumblebee movie, which I have not seen. I've seen Brandon Sanderson's analysis of it, but just like the girl mechanic working on the like kind of alive machine, and I think there's like a backstory with her dad and stuff, so like there's sort of a
Oh my
family element
goodness.
there. So, I
Yes.
kept thinking of it as Encanto meets Transformers Bumblebee. That was my headcanon comp titles for it.
I love that actually. I feel like you might have told me that before, or somebody
I
else
think I
has
did.
mentioned that to me. Okay, so I was like, oh, I feel like somebody's told me that before. I still haven't seen that movie either, but I see it. I see it. I need to watch that.
Yeah, yeah, I'd be interested to watch it too. I'm sure, in the vast majority of ways it's not the same, but there were just a few elements of it that kind of reminded me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. And how would you hope your writing will impact the future of storytelling? Or do you?
Yes, this is a big question. And again, Amy's answer was just like she killed it. And so I feel like mine is never gonna live up to that. But I would say, like her, I don't think I've really thought about like impacting the future of storytelling so much as impacting like the individual readers that read the story. Um, and I hope really that each reader gets out of the anthology and out of my story whatever they need from it. If that's um, just like I said, like a safe place to just feel held for a little bit, um, or if it's a lesson, if it's um, some good Big Brother vibes, like whatever you need from it, I think is really what I want people to get out of it. Um, so yeah, and I guess for impacting the future of storytelling, I think just bringing even more comfort reads out there. Like I know how impactful having like a YA story where I read it and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is me. Like this feels authentically like who I am. This feels realistic. And so I think just bringing even more stories like that into the world that really feel like they're written with teenagers in mind, really written for this stage of life with all of the up and down emotions and all the things that brings. Um, just having more stories like that you just feel safe and seen in is really valuable and important.
Mm, I know, especially since the pandemic, comforting and not super stressful stories have gotten even
Yes.
more popular. So if you're looking for that kind of like comforting, relaxing kind of read, then probably Abby's work is going to be something that you will enjoy. Um, so again, if you guys have questions for Abby, go ahead and type them in the chat. And while you type them in the chat, Abby, where can we find you online? Where can we learn more about you and your writing?
Yes. So I'm on Instagram also at Abby Lynn Voss author. I'm also on Facebook at Abby Lynn Voss, but I am less active there. And then I also have my email list. So you can sign up for that at abbylynnvoss.com. The website is still in progress, but you can join the email list there. You can find all those details. And yeah, those are kind of the main places.
Awesome. And yeah, again, I will get those links into the description when I post the replay so that people can find you even more easily. Do we
Okay.
have any questions for Abby from the audience, or was she just so clear that there's not even anything that you could question? Oh, and you can also find Abby in a newspaper online article from Fredericksburg, Virginia. So that's
Very
pretty cool.
true.
And you
Yes,
can find
yes,
her on Spotify if you look up the Cherry
yes.
Lane
If you
song.
want to listen to my one song, you can find it there.
Uh-huh.
So all the places, definitely, definitely. Um, but thank you so much, Jenny. This was super fun.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. It was great to have you. Anything else that you wanted to say before I hit the kick Abby out button?
I don't think so. But yeah, thank you all for listening. Thank you, Jenny, for hosting. Yeah,
Yeah, it was great to have you on. Thanks, Abby.
thank you.
Okay, let's see if Olivia can come on. Let's give her one more chance to try coming on and see if that will work. Once again, we are all authors who have stories in the Voices of the Future anthology, and all of the proceeds of this book go to help us attend writers' conferences. So if you don't have your copy of the book yet, or if you'd like to get another one as a gift for somebody, there is a link to it in the description. And if you would like to keep following my channel and hear more about my writing projects, these other authors' writing projects, and the future of storytelling, then don't forget to like this video to help more people find it, and to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss what I make in the future. Let's see, how long should we wait to see if Livy will be able to join? Let's see what she can do. Oh, there you are!
Hello,
Yay!
hi, I made it.
You made it. I'm so glad you could make it. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's a little cold here, but yeah.
Yep, we're feeling that cold too. It's supposed to warm back up here, though. I don't know if it's gonna warm up there too in a few days again, but just crazy up and down temperatures.
Mm.
So, Livy, I should probably call you Olivia on the interview since that's your author name, but what's the first thing that you want people to know about you as an author?
That is a very good question, and I'm not really sure, in all honesty. Yeah, I should have like a really good sounding, eloquent answer, but I don't really have a good one except that I write books.
Yes, that is okay. And one thing that people I think will notice pretty quickly is that you have a color-coded bookshelf behind you, which
Yes,
looks
I
very
do.
impressive.
Yes, I love my bookshelf. It's very nice.
Yes, for sure. So, what is your story in the Voices of the Future anthology about?
All right, so my short story, a book dragon story, is about a disabled book dragon working to earn her place by her mother's side in their family library.
Yes, and it is a lot of fun. It's the first story in the anthology,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a really fun opener to the book. What was the main inspiration for a book dragon story?
I would really say it's my love of dragons. I really loved dragons, but I just wanted something a little less life-threatening and more comfortable. And I love books and libraries too, so I just combined both into one amalgamation of things I liked.
Yes, it was so fun to have a dragon story that was more relaxing and low stakes, and of course combining, also two of my favorite things, dragons and books, putting them together in the same place, and then imagining how it could work for dragons to write books and all of that. It's a whole lot of fun. Who is your story written for?
When I was writing this story, it I didn't have an ideal reader in mind. It was at the time just a get this done and turn it in on time sort of story. But as I've thought about it and seen what people have said, it's really turned into one of the stories for girls that really need to hear the truth, that they're enough, that they're seen, that that they're enough.
And how does your story fit into the family theme?
All right, so I think Bookmark, the main character, her relationship with her mother really makes it a solid addition to the theme of family. She learns throughout the story what it means to truly be loved, her mother and not by her expectations,
Mm,
and not by what you do, but who she is.
yeah. Yes, I really liked her relationship with her mom and how she and her mom were both kind of multifaceted characters, and that it wasn't too simplistic, but it wasn't too convoluted either. I really liked their relationship. Are there any books or movies or songs or anything that you would compare your story to, or say like if you're a fan of this, you'll be a fan of a book dragon story?
There weren't any when I was writing it, and there weren't any that came to mind until after it had been published, and it was The Dragon with a Chocolate Heart by Stephanie Burgess.
Mm,
I read that over Christmas break, and I absolutely loved that book. It combined the fun and the whimsy, but also the magic of fantasy and dragons and all of that. With food too, which makes it even better.
yes. Yes, food is great. And this isn't like one specific comparison, but reading it, like to me, it felt like a Pixar movie. It gave me like Pixar movie or Studio Ghibli movie kinds of vibes,
Mhm.
where it feels like something that you watched in your childhood, but then it also has these layers that you don't really notice or fully understand until you watch it later as an adult. And it felt like the kind of thing that I would have read a long time ago, and like now it has a lot of memories, even though it's new, and I just only read it for the first time recently, so that was also kind of it felt like it could have been like a Pixar slash Studio Ghibli kind of movie to me.
Mm. Which is really interesting and nice because I love um, both Pixar and Studio Ghibli movies because of their dedication and respect for craft and really
Mm,
making something beautiful and meaningful that everybody can enjoy at all levels. It's
right.
something that is simple but complex enough that it keeps giving to you, no matter what age you are. And I think that's the magic of really good stories is that good stories last, whether you're 8 or 85.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of putting it. And maybe there will be a movie of a Book Dragon story someday, and I think that's the kind of movie that it would be.
That would be pretty cool. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think that's gonna happen, but that would be pretty cool if it did.
Yes. And how do you hope your writing will impact the future of storytelling, or do you? Because both Amie and Abby have said that they're thinking more about individual readers. Any impact on the future of storytelling would be, ancillary. So, what's your take on that?
Hmm. I really think that I agree with them in that it's not about the industry or the whole, but it's about the person that I'm trying to write to. I I really hope that I can impact the way that disability is written and perceived in writing or even in our culture by showing the balance of acknowledging pain but also seeing the beauty. But when it comes down to it, it's not about a cause, it's not about a place, it's not about um, any of that, but it's about the people who walk and talk and live their own stories that I
Hmm,
want to make better.
yeah. Well, if anybody else has a question for Livy, go ahead and put it in the chat. Once again, I'll be putting links in the description when I post the replay so that you can find Livy online very easily. But in the meantime, Livy, where can we find you online and where can we learn more about you and follow your writing?
I'm most active on my email list, which you can subscribe to. I'm also on Instagram. Those are the main two places that you could find me.
Yep. Okay, we do have a couple of questions. The first one is from Molly, and she asked, do you have any tips for writing dragons?
Um, you have to remember that you're not writing a human character. So you have to really think about all the things that we take for granted, like walking, talking, picking up objects, are going to be completely different. It's going to change. So when you write those basic actions, you need to rethink the way you're doing it instead of just it being intuitive. Like, for example, instead of picking up things with your hands, it's claws. Instead of walking, it could be flying over, or it could be fidgeting with your tail, or lighting someone on fire. Hopefully not, but there are things like that that you can add in that adds a lot more, just a little bit of texture.
Yeah. And again, I thought it was really fun how you did that with writing. I know I've mentioned this already, but I really liked it that writing was different for dragons, and that there's a very unique dragonish way of writing in this world that is pretty cool. So yeah, that does add a lot of uniqueness to the story. Pevio asks, are there any other book-related dragon names that you considered using for characters?
I did not have any extra names. In fact, I struggled a bit to come up with more, which, if you noticed, Bookmark's mother doesn't have a name, and that's why. Because I couldn't come up with a name for her. So what you see is what you get.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet I would have had a hard time coming up with more book-related names too. Like novella, once I heard that, I was like, that sounds so much like a name. Why have I never thought of naming someone that? But yeah, I really like Bookmark and Dewey as names. That's a lot of fun. Abby asks, if you could sit across from a reader and tell them one behind-the-scenes detail from this story, what would it be?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think if there's anything fun or interesting or meaningful that I haven't already talked about. I'd say probably that I was cold most of the time because I was writing it in the middle of winter. So I would be writing the entire thing wrapped up in a blanket in this chair with gloves on, typing away at my computer, maybe with even a heater. Yeah.
Thinking that some of that dragon fire sounds nice about right now.
Yeah, it would. Maybe a nice roaring fire to put my feet up next to. I don't know.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Olivia, is there anything else that you wanted to share with the audience before we end our interview for today?
Nothing that I can think of.
Well, I'm glad that you ended up being able to make it. Thank
Yeah.
you for joining today, and I will talk to you later.
All right, you can have fun kicking me out now.
I will do so. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for coming. We finally talked to all of the anthology authors, which is really exciting. I'm glad we were finally able to get everybody on an interview in spite of some obstacles. One more time, all of us wrote stories that are in the Voices of the Future, Stories of Family and Fearlessness anthology, and all of the proceeds from sales of this book are helping us go to writers' conferences. So if you don't have a copy yet, or if you know anybody who would like a copy, you can find a link to buy one of these in the description of this video. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you would like to hear more about my writing journey and these other authors' writing journeys as well. Thank you guys for coming. I'm glad it was enjoyable, Molly. It's been great to have you at these. Thank you all for asking questions, and I will see you guys later. Thank you for coming one more time, and I will kick myself out now. Bye.